opening this meeting here and start with the approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve and accept this agenda with amendment to the item 7D personnel report. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 4 was actually just an order issue. We had already had our work session, so we'll go on to item number 5, communication from the public. I have 3 requests. Start with Lori Bullock. So, on behalf of the board, I'd like to invite Lori to step to the microphone with comments about items of interest or concern. Please begin by stating your name and your affiliation with our school district. Thank you for limiting your comments to 3 minutes so we can keep the meeting moving in a timely fashion. We ask that you remember Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees, their job performance, or individual students. Thank you for your support of our school district. You may begin.
Thank you very much. Lori Bullock, I live here in Ankeny. I have 2 children, one starting at Parkview and then one at Ankeny High. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the administration and the school board for offering in the optional diversity, inclusion, and equity training that was offered to teachers. I know from speaking with both of my children that we have issues in our classrooms with students feeling excluded or being targeted because of their race or because of their gender or disability. And it's incredibly important that we educate not only our teachers, but then pass that education along to our students about how to talk about those topics, how to be respectful of everybody, and not just in a very high level way, but in a real way, to have real conversations about what is racism, what is, gender discrimination, and to be able to educate our teachers is the very first step in being able to have those conversations in our classroom. So I know that there are members of the community who may not have felt that that was a beneficial training, but I just want to make sure that the school board and the administration know that there are plenty of parents out there who we notice these things going on in our classroom, and we know how important it is to teach this not only to our teachers, but then be able to teach this to our kids as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Lori. Next one I have is Andrew Rasmussen. Did you hear my opening remarks? So yes, state your name and your affiliation with the district, and you may have your 3 minutes.
Andrew Rasmussen. I'm the stepfather of 2 Ankeny High School graduates and Ankeny High School senior graduate, hopefully next year, as well as a 3-year-old who's got a few more years left. I'm also an educator. I teach 8th grade U.S. history at Harding Middle School in Des Moines. I've taught in Des Moines for 27 years. I wanted to talk to you about the history curriculum. When I teach U.S. history, I focus my class around 5 frames that I think almost all Americans could agree are important ideals: liberty, equality, justice, fairness, democracy, and opportunity. And I frame the class around that, and we center everything that we look at through that lens. However, we also have another lens that we look at as well, and that's the dark opposites of those ideals: oppression, inequality, unfairness, lack of a voice, greed. Those are also important to involve in our discussion about U.S. history. So to teach real U.S. history means that we not only teach the moments of victory, only the shiny, pretty parts that make us feel good, but also the parts where we did not live up to our ideals. For it is only in contrasting them that we give meaning to that past and motivation to continue trying to better realize those 5 ideals. A true patriot takes pride not in our country being perfect, doing the right thing all the time. A truly patriotic person is one who keeps striving for us to fully realize what our country could be, liberty, equality, justice, democracy, and opportunity. So I encourage our district not to be swayed by calls in our community to whitewash our history or avoid certain topics in our history, but to continue to push for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools and in our curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then I have Erin Valerio Garceau. Did I get that right?
You did. I am. That's good stuff. And I did hear what you said.
All right, that was my next question.
I was gonna say, I've heard it a couple of times this year.
Yes.
But my name is Erin Valerio Garceau. I have a 2020, a 2021 grad, and a current sophomore at Centennial High School. And the reason I am here is to say thank you. I guess I kind of want to echo some of what they've said, but I want to say thank you for the work that I think has really started to become done in earnest in the last 4 or 5 years in this district to really look at who we are as a community, as a school district. How are we treating the people within it? I'm a 25-year educator. I'm an old lady, and I kind of have always had this need to make sure that we are creating these places for students, especially, sorry, I'm fogging, especially students who feel different, to feel accepted, to feel like they have a place. And I think if we don't do that work, and if we neglect the fact that we do have implicit bias, everyone does, that we're missing a huge opportunity to create adults that we're going to want to see go out into the world and say, yeah, I'm from Ankeny, Iowa, check me out. I think that is incredibly important. And as somebody who has worked, as I'm a college access professional, I have been for the last 12 years. I worked specifically with students getting ready to go to college. And these are students that didn't have anybody at home who'd ever gone to school, didn't have anybody who they could talk to, who would understand what their home situation is like. And the fact that we are now looking at Ankeny from the lens of, yes, we have some of those kids here. They've always been here. It's just been a very quiet minority. We have to be better than that. And I would hope that in the light of all these changes that are coming at us, you will continue to do the work that I think should be applauded. I think that there are some very, very positive things happening here, and I'd like to see that continue. And I hope as a parent, I can be a positive voice for those things to continue. And I just appreciate the work you've done, because this has not been the easiest 19 months in the universe, for sure. But thank you.
All right, thank you, Erin. That was the last of was the public comment. Thank you. Item number 6, board rationales in your packet. Comments or questions on board rationale? Seeing none. Consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve and accept these consent agenda items as recommended?
Motion.
Second.
Comments or questions on any of these consent agenda items? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Information only, item 8A, 2022 IASB resolutions. Dr. Pruitt, is that you?
Yes, it is. So I had provided the board members with the IASB priorities. At some point, either this month or next month, the board will have to identify what their top priorities are based off of the ISB priorities. Right. They provided a long list for us to get.
Yes. Yes, and go ahead.
Question, do we have to stay within what they suggest?
No. No. Yeah, so we have opportunity. I mean, I think for the last decade, we've turned in the same 5. And it's changed much, but it is for us to share what we believe our priorities are for that process. So any other comments on that particular? It's something we're familiar with. And we'll work.
So I just want to ask, in the past, it seems like it's just been a rubber stamp. Could we have a actual discussion
Absolutely.
about what we want to prioritize
Absolutely.
versus just, this is what we always have done? happens in Ankeny a lot.
Yeah, I think then if we want to put on the agenda, bring your 5 new priorities to the table, we can kind of vote on it that way. It had been done that way years ago. And we looked at those. Obviously, it's hard to narrow those down, to 5, but, let's start with that, see where we get. Anybody else, comments or questions? All right. Item B, district developed service delivery model.
Director Johnson, I'm gonna ask Nancy Lee to come up and provide the board with what our service delivery model was and what it will be moving forward.
Hi, again. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I want to start tonight with really kind of framing a thank you first. Typically, I do that at the end, but today I'm here representing the work of a very high functioning team. And so there were many members that dug into this work and did this work throughout the course of the year. And I need to say publicly, thank you to them for dedicating their time in the meetings, their time digging in outside of the meetings, their time questioning. To watch this group of adults and individuals work was just, mind blowing to just sit back and watch the conversations and the questions that they would ask. They pushed some thinking and challenged practice, and I appreciate that. So it's really an honor for me to represent their work today and know that it is a team's effort, and I'm just the voice for today. So just a little bit of a summary. A district developed service to plan. Affectionately, we needed to acronym it, so we called it a DDSDP, just for fun. It is a required component. The Department of Education requires us to do that. It's listed in an administrative code. And so you'll see if you dig in and read administrative code, it's a process that's intended to be reviewed, revised, or revamped or readopted every 5 years. And in Ankeny, the last time that this plan was brought to you was September of 2011, which is a little more than 5 years ago. So a commitment to you moving forward that we will fall within the administrative code and do that every 5 years. So we have a lot to talk about and a lot to consider because a lot's changed in 10 years.
Were we out of compliance? Like, are there repercussions for not?
I just saw the date and had a small stroke, so I moved forward. I don't think we were out of compliance or
Okay,
were we out of expectation of the code? Yes. Was there a reprimand involved? No.
okay.
But there certainly is best practice and expectation. So just a kind of an overview of the requirements, the Department of Education provides us with guidance on how to develop a district developed service delivery plan. It's a very overarching document. It won't get into the weeds and details that you want to see, but it's a state level document that then is uploaded to our CSIP plan. They provide the components. They state very clearly that it's intended to speak to the delivery of special education services beginning at PK, for which is for some students 2 years, 9 months, all the way through the age of 21, if those students are eligible for services. So we talk about how those services are provided. The components of the district developed service delivery plan, which you have in front of you, are really identifying the people. They provide us with a group of people that are required members. They require us to review data. There's a caseload determination that's expected, a caseload resolution that's expected, a provision of services that's expected, and then a plan for monitoring and evaluation. So those are the components that are outlined from the Department of Education that this committee was charged with revising or creating. So just so that you have an insight into what our process was, we started, my small stroke was early in the fall. We put a team together and we started that work in December. And so we started in December and we met twice per month and all the way through May, and really kind of chunked this out and really dug in and did some really intense work. So we established our team members. We met 11 different meetings, 11 different times for those meetings, and then a couple extra times for editing and revision. but not changing of content. Then this document that's in front of you went open for public comment as required by the Department of Education for 20 days. We reconvened that team to review that public comment and determine if edits and revisions needed to be made, which you see cited in that document. We then submitted this document to our Heartland AEA Special Education Director for approval. That approval came back to us on July 1st. And then the next step brings it to you to request school board approval. If school board approves that document, then it would be uploaded into our CSIP plan and officially communicated with the state of Iowa. The people that were on our committee, just so that you know, we had all the required components. We had a combination of special education teachers, general education teachers, parents, administrators, Heartland AEA representatives. And then I want you to hear from me that we took very great consideration in representing PK through 21 and North and South K through 12 grade levels. So we had equal representation on that committee. As you've had the opportunity to review that plan, I'll be happy to answer questions about it in here in a minute, but we know that it's important for that plan to move from a piece of paper to something that's actually implemented. So it's one thing to create a document and another thing to implement. So we've done some intentional work in the upcoming year to help us with that. We've dedicated some professional learning for our special education staff on Wednesday mornings, once per month. So they'll get specialized learning around, we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at diagnostics and how we diagnose skill deficit and then how we design and deliver instruction to support that. We've designated some specialized time for the development of our administrative team. We have some time for our administrative team to dig in to do some more learning around special education. There's been a development of a special education leadership team that will meet monthly and will continue to touch base on this and review not only just the delivery plan, but also the other things that pop up frequently in the world of special education. And then we have intentional collaboration with various district departments, including human resources, operations, and things. There's a lot to make all this run. And then shared opportunities for learning with our Heartland AEA. They meet regularly as a system. And what one of my observations on learning is sometimes we run parallel in our learning, but maybe not integrated in our learning. So they're going to do some learning for us, and I'm going to do some learning for them from the system. So we'll exchange our learning back and forth so that we can be a united front within our system. That's a very quick overview, and you have the actual document in your hands, and I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have regarding the plan.
Jim?
So how did you select your committee members?
We looked, it's a great question. We looked at administrators. Each category was a little bit different lens. We looked at administrators who had invested interest or experience working in special education. We had parents that were both, that were advocates, strong advocates for their children that we asked to be part of that team. Some general education teachers who had shown a great interest in how to serve special education students within their classroom. Special education teachers who expressed an interest or a desire for some things to change. And then involving, of course, preschool, which was not involved in the last plan at all. So a wide variety of different considerations for each group.
Being a former elementary person, I was looking at them, and the 5 parents, there was 1 elementary and no preschool parent. And then with the special ed teachers, there were 2 elementary and 1 preschool. And then 6 general ed teachers and just 1 elementary teacher. So I was just thinking it's a little secondary heavy, and was concerned about that. I'll be up south and north and that type of thing, but it appeared to me that it just didn't have a lot of lower grade input. Maybe those people were more vocal, I don't know.
Yeah, I could share with you our conversations did span pre-K through 12 pretty richly.
And then of the parents, how many of those parents were actually staff members that were on the parent group?
We had 2 that served dual. We had parents, and actually that voice was very valuable to have a parent that not only served as an educator, but also had a student with an identified disability.
So the input from the public, it was 20 days. How did that go? How did that When did you do that? Say?
20 days is required by the Department of Education. That's the requirement that it be open for public comment. And we put it up on our website and opened it for public comment and then received that public comment, took it back to the committee, reviewed that public comment, and determined if there were any edits or revisions necessary.
So like, did you have a lot of feedback?
We had some,
Like, how much? Just curious, like 20?
no, we didn't have an exorbitant amount of feedback, but we had some very scripted feedback.
So I would, just a question or maybe a suggestion is maybe if we wanted feedback, maybe we, I don't know if it's appropriate under this guidelines to send specifically to all the parents of kids with IEPs, or is that not appropriate?
I think
I don't know, I'm just asking.
I think it was available to all people in our community. I think it's more than just students with IEPs. I think it's available to everyone.
How did people know it was on the website? Did they get an email telling them to go to the website, or would they have just had to have been on the website?
It was just posted on the website for public comment.
Okay.
And then the caseload thing, that was a complicated looking formula. I mean, I remember sitting down with my special ed teachers and we'd be talking about, you know, caseloads and that type of thing. We had points assigned similar to this. So, but I didn't see anything in there about what's an average load, what's a pretty heavy load, or when should we have the conversation? Is there any like,
There's a range listed in the text of an acceptable caseload.
in what we got?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find that.
Yep, there's a point range listed. I don't have it in front of me, but I have to pull that up. There's a point range listed for what's determined. It's quite a wide range.
35 to 55.
Yep, thank you. Quite a wide range of points because we're talking about different levels of service. So there is a caseload range there within which we determined that through pilot implementation of the caseload. So we had a tool kind of created and we sent it out to multiple special education teachers, had them review their caseloads by that and kind of developed a range from that data.
That makes sense. So average is between 35 and 55.
On the bottom of page 6.
I missed it. Page 6.
I might be careful with the word average. 35 to 55 would be what we would find. The special education teacher would be able to provide
Right.
FAPE if their caseload was within that range.
So if they start going over 55, that's when you start doing this whole process of talking to your principal, informal meeting. I don't remember doing all those things. I'm sorry, I missed that on the bottom of page 6.
That's okay. The idea being, if we're monitoring, one thing I would like to share is we're moving from a stagnant caseload to a electronic caseload that can be edited and adjusted as students' needs. So as students move in, as goals change, the caseload for the teacher can be revised and edited on an ongoing basis and a tracking of how they're editing it and documenting it. So that principals can see, what a caseload looks like on the first day of school and what a caseload looks like in October is often different. So the idea being, if we monitor and kind of keep a pulse on those caseloads, that we won't get to the point where we need to have a resolution process because we're being proactive and assigning new students or supports that come for those students.
I would assume or hope that we always just go maybe at the most to step 1 and then work it out.
Yeah, and my hope would be we don't even have to get there with a live document.
And my understanding is that some of the higher functioning buildings, sometimes the teachers themselves will collaborate and say, oh, I can help with this and I'll help with this. So they have a balanced approach to supporting all their kids and maybe the adults that that are helping them, associate support and all those kinds of things. So sometimes they even solve it, like you said, before we even have to have a conversation with the principal maybe.
Yeah, I do feel pretty passionately about having it being a live document will really help our administrators and our teachers understand where they currently are rather than this twice a year type thing. We'll officially check them and report out on them and measure them frequently throughout the, I think we have 3 times throughout the year, and one being predicting for the next school year so that we can plan for staffing adequately. But also, as a former building principal, it's something I would be looking at very, very regularly. Every time I add a new student, adjust a goal, make an adjustment to an IEP, that caseload can be revised.
Which electronically, I'm sure that'll be very helpful. So
I hope so.
I didn't realize it's 10 years. That's crazy. That's all I have.
All right, other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the public comment. I've got some concerns about how that was done. Because this is a population of parents that sometimes I'm sure find themselves overwhelmed. And so just putting something up on the website and hope they find it, that's not acceptable to me. But my other part is you looked at the feedback and it wasn't directly associated with the questions in the plan. So was the feedback just give us your feedback, or were those 5 questions posed and the public was responding to those 5 questions that were at the beginning of the document?
5 questions were posed.
Okay.
And the public had the ability to respond directly to each question. So the question, our part of the EDST place, so like question 1 and then our text, and then a place to respond. So the responses were directly related, or to be directly related to the question within the plan.
And so in your analysis, the responses weren't directly associated with the required questions in the plan. So is there a gap in there of communication, or were people just talking about personal stories instead of looking, at an overall systems approach?
I think sometimes a personal experience might cloud what a district developed document needs to look like. So the response, while not ignored, that feedback was still important. It still wasn't directly related to how we would adjust that component of the plan. So the team didn't feel there was a need to make an adjustment. That doesn't mean we dismissed that feedback or didn't consider that feedback. Just in this venue, there wasn't an alignment.
And so then, is this document itself, and maybe that's what you were alluding to when you were wrapping your discussion up with Jim, is this document itself a living, breathing document? Or does this stay solid for 5 years and we don't make any changes and then we look at it again in 5 years?
I wouldn't call it living, breathing. If you're going to make edits to that document, then you have to go through the process that's outlined by the Department of Education.
Okay.
So we have to pull the committee back together, follow that process, make edits and revisions based upon that. That being said, if there's something that presents as a glaring error and that's needed and required, certainly not opposed to doing that process, but it's not something that we can just edit on our own outside of a committee review.
So I would just ask when this comes around again in 5 years, just look at that public comment and how that's laid out. I think that could be more robust and you could get richer communication if it's communicated better to our families that need to see this information. And then please don't take this as an alarm, but what happens if we don't approve this?
I would need feedback as to why, so we pull the committee back together and then revisit it with the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So just you referenced you'd be developing a district special ed leadership team. Could you just speak a little bit about, I don't need names, but like who does that consist of?
Yes, I've asked the administration to pick a special education teacher representative from each of their buildings. So we'll have the 17 campuses plus Beyond and Summit represented. And the purpose of that team would be for like a conduit of communication. So as we continue to talk about what it means to implement a continuum of services, and they can take that back to their PLC or any ongoing items. Last year we had several urgent items that needed to get to teachers, and email isn't always the best venue for that to happen. So having some teaching and learning with a small group that can be taken back to their PLC. I can also hear, like, for example, with caseload, what's going well, what's not clear, what do we need to consider? Is there additional clarity needed as you implemented that for the first time? How do we improve that for the second time? And really work through some of those bugs and glitches that you expect with implementation.
My second question,
I mean, obviously 10 years has passed, like, can you lift up like what might be some of the biggest changes? If there were large changes, or is it
Yeah.
related to that?
Caseload is completely different. We're looking at a lot of different components and really focusing the measurement on instruction. So how many minutes of instruction are they providing per day? That's the largest weighted category. And then looked at all the different components of that and weighted them very differently accordingly. Our previous plan had minimal descriptions for PK service. We really expanded and considered how we provide a continuum of services at the preschool level. And then really expanded the definitions of the large chunks of the continuum of services, not all things possible, but the predominant components within that. We also provided a great deal of detail to how we plan to measure and assess and evaluate the effectiveness of our special education program.
Thank you. This is maybe for Jennifer. Did I get a lot of emails and I sometimes get work confused with this. When we asked for public comment on our return to learn plan here recently, we emailed that out to families. And maybe it's not Jennifer, maybe
I
it's
think it
anyone
was an here. email that just provided a link to the website and the ability to fill things out.
Okay. I just think one of the themes the board hears, this is not specific to special education, is that in various settings, we're not very transparent about when we need communication and soliciting that communication. And so I too have concerns that maybe the method we went here to solicit feedback for public comment, I could understand how some of our community members may feel like we could have been more proactive with soliciting feedback from our community. So thank you for sharing this and thank you for your work on this. This is not easy.
Couple more questions. We had, a little while back, pre-COVID, we had a group of studying part of the continuum of services with our kids that had challenging behaviors. And that just, we just didn't meet last year. And so I'm assuming maybe part of this committee that you have formed, the special ed leadership group, maybe you could revisit that, and that might be part of your conversations, I assume.
I think what you're referencing is the superintendent had a directed committee that looked at challenging behavior. It was not just special education, it was behaviors for all students, if I remember correctly. And that committee, the committee was their task force.
It was.
I was on that committee.
Task force that disbanded during COVID. So I don't know that the work that was really outlined in that task force would only fall under special education. Special education was much broader than that. We certainly talk about challenging behaviors and problem solve different ways to support those through the special education lens, but I think the task force that you're representing was a different lens.
Okay. So I just wondering if that's could be connected. But and then my last question, and it alludes to, special education often where you have reviews and IEP meetings and new staffings, you add people according to IEP. And my question, I don't know if it fits in here, but it's so challenging right now to find people. So my question is, how do we solve the problem of you need a person to assist in this child's IEP, but we can't find people? And I know it's an HR thing, and I know it's a budget thing, but that's just another ongoing thing that we have to keep our eye on, because we can have a great plan, but if we can't find the people to carry out the plan, then sometimes, I don't have any answers to that.
Well, I'll share with you a celebration.
Okay.
We used a strategy this year where we started really recruiting and hiring special education teachers in early December in anticipation of growth and need. And we were able to hire early and secure most of our special education teaching positions, minus a few surprises, very early in the year. And they're all currently filled, ready for the school year. So we know we have enough certified staff, and we are currently engaged in hiring classified staff. We had a great turnout yesterday at our on-site job fairs to walk in. So I'm confident that we'll get there.
Thanks.
I'm excited about the staff that we hired this year. Public plug, they're really talented and I'm excited to have them here.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Did you have any comments on that topic?
No,
Okay, all right, we'll move on to item C then. Didn't want to cut you off too soon. ESER 3 plan.
so I think the update with the ESER 3 plan is that the plan is actually due August 23rd, and that we had to submit our reimbursement July 15th. And so we're still working on public comment with regards to the plan.
I think the public comment window closed on July 2nd. It's still posted on our website, the plan itself.
So the public can still view the ESER 3 plan, but then we'll be submitting it August 23rd.
Jim?
So maybe part of the conversation just had some sort of way of making sure our public really knows that they should be giving comments.
So I was just gonna ask, was this another? just
No,
put
it
on
went
the
out in an
website?
email.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm pretty sure it went out in an email.
just want to make sure.
We also, Jen also talked about it at the June SiAC meeting. And we got some input there at that meeting, and then the email went out inviting public to comment. We had 3 comments on the website.
All right, any other comments on ESER 3? Okay. Item D, new payroll supervisor position per board policy 205.30 positions, qualifications, and duties.
So this is a new position for our budget, our CFO. We're adding a payroll supervisor to the team.
Comments or questions about this particular role?
I know Eric had talked to us, maybe last board meeting about, excuse me, about the whole idea of how we plan positions and how each department shares why we need them, and we're trying to be very conscious of that. So obviously you did that with this one, and thanks for doing that, because I appreciate the whole idea of, I know that aren't we even kind of combining some jobs that were, this person's doing this duty and this duty, there might have been several other people, so you're trying to be efficient and yet get someone to do the job that.
Jennifer.
Yeah, this was kind of an unexpected departure for our staff accountant leaving. She took on another position, and if you recall, we had a general accounting supervisor that was a rescope of one of our accounts, receivable and inventory clerk. And that happened during the staffing plan. You approved that. And so, you know, the vision for our department was to have 2 positions, 2 supervisory positions that kind of complement each other, payroll and then the general accounting. And so, you know, it was always kind of on our plan for the future, but with the departure of the staff accountant, we were able to, you know, restructure the duties within our department, which, you know, ultimately will help, I believe, our recruitment of, you know, highly qualified individuals into these roles, as well as provide a career track for the folks in our department that they can, you know, attain it if they would desire to do so.
Any other comments or questions on this role? Okay. Item E, policy committee report is in your packet. Questions or comments on the minutes? Item F, revenue expenditure report. Also in your packet. Questions or comments? Riveting as always.
You know?
Item G, SiAC minutes are also in your packet. Any questions or comments on SiAC? All right. Item 9, old business contracts and agreements. May I have a motion to approve and accept these contracts and agreements as recommended?
Motion.
Second.
Comments or questions on any of these contracts and agreements? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, 2021-2022 table of organization. May I have a motion to approve and accept the 2021-2022 2022 table of organization as recommended.
Motion. Second.
Comments or questions on table? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, policy second and final reading. May I have a motion to approve and accept the second and final reading of presented policies as recommended?
Motion.
Second.
Comments or questions on any of these policies? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, approval of the 21-22 annual improvement goals. May I have a motion to approve and accept the 21-22 annual improvement goals as recommended?
Motion. Second.
Comments or questions on these particular?
The only comment I would have is that I appreciated the work session today. Help us understand more about our student data and what people are trying to do to reach these goals. And more of that for the board on a regular basis, I think is really important, so we can really focus on why we're all here for the kids and growing. So I appreciate that work session this afternoon.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 10, new business, transfer of ESSER 2 funds. May I have a motion to approve and accept the transfer of ESSER 2 funds as recommended?
Motion. Second.
Comments or questions? ESSER 2. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Our two board member reports. Start with Ryan this time.
Nothing to report.
All right. Katie?
Just want to thank Jen and her team for that work session today. It's my favorite thing to do.
I would also like to thank them for all that data and information and for their obvious commitment to digging beyond the numbers into the data and finding out what it really means and how we can get better in the areas that we need improvement.
Jim?
Echo. Thank you.
Sure.
What she said.
The only comment I might have is, it falls back along the lines of communications and how we can be as proactive as possible. I know there's questions about what we're doing this fall, even if it's nothing different or changed since last time we communicated. It doesn't hurt to reiterate some of those things, especially when it comes to changes in the news and people want to know this, that, or the other thing. So we've had some recent communications asking some of those questions. And I think as we see those, the general population, then probably just be as well to make sure that we're communicating what we know today and what that means for the fall. So we just have our parents ready what dealing with and what we know at the moment. So that.
That be an agenda item next time to get an update from Darren, just what.
Yeah,
what's that
absolutely.
going? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Pruitt, it's yours.
First of all, I want to thank Megan, Katie, Brittany, Candy, Nikki, and Brenda. These ladies were serving meals last week at Northview, our summer curbside meal. They were gracious enough to let me tag along, and they didn't let me help. They didn't, I didn't wear the dinosaur suit. I just stood around talking to these ladies as they handed out meals to our community. So really appreciate the work that they put in on that hot day. I also want to thank the principals at Ashland Ridge, Northeast, East, and Southeast for welcoming me into their buildings last week. I got to visit with them for a short period of time just to get to know them and their schools. Really look forward to visiting other campuses for the remainder of the summer. Also, I had an opportunity to meet with the Community Engagement Advisory Council. I thought that was a really productive conversation with that council. Really look forward to, again, improving our communication with the council and our partnership with them as far as how we identify services for our students and community. And then also, This week, we hosted our first series of open interviews for several classified staff positions, including general associates, special ed associates, nutrition services, and custodians for more than 85 positions. From the first day of the interviews, we've filled more than 20 positions for the 2021-2022 school year. I want to thank our human resources team for organizing this hiring event. Also, a special shout out to our sports teams. We were honored in the Des Moines Register High School Sports Awards. Ankeny High School football was named Iowa High School Team of the Year. Trent Franzen, if I pronounce your name correctly, from Ankeny High School was named Boys Swimmer of the Year. Congratulations to Trent. Fiona Schrader from Ankeny High School was named Volleyball Player of the Year. I apologize if I mispronounce your first name. Please join me in congratulating these students for their honors. That's the end of my report.
There are no closed sessions, so all I need is a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned.
You know, I